All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Mike Hoffmeyer, U.S. Chess President. Glad to be with you here this evening for this town hall. We're going to talk about, of course, preparations for and just make sure you feel comfortable with using the Zoom capability and knowing how to vote as we, get ready to run this special delegates meeting basically 48 hours from now. So, we're going to have a little bit of housekeeping here as part of this meeting tonight, and then we'll do a practice vote and give everybody a chance to get lost in the technology and raising their hands and so forth. So one thing you all need to do is when you sign in to the meeting itself, kind of two things that everybody has to do. First of all, your camera has to be on, because you will not be counted as in attendance if your camera is not on and you are not live. So that way we can check Guy picking his nose and, Alan scratching his head and everything else that's going on. But make sure you got your state next to your name, so you can use the rename feature. Right click on your name on the screen and you can rename yourself and put your state there, because that's important as we count the delegates. Okay, so everybody needs to do that. All right, let's go ahead and scroll the agenda, Carol. So, the context for this meeting, everybody received the delegates packet that we sent through the mail. You may have gotten it through email or you may have pulled it off the website, but everybody's pretty much got the read aheads. And please, if you haven't had a chance to do so yet, it's important that you take a look at that stuff in preparation for the meeting, because some of the questions that we've been getting, not necessarily on this session here, but some of the questions that we've been getting are in the frequently asked questions already. So we just got to make sure we take advantage of that resource. We're also gonna have a overview tonight of Robert's Rules of Order for this special delegates meeting. Carol, you see Andy in yet? Okay, well, we can cover that if he's not available. And then, like I said, you'll get a chance to test your Zoom capabilities. We have a couple mock votes, and just to make sure that, all the votes get recorded and so forth. So, all right, next slide. So, kind of the background, the executive board voted a while back to move U.S. Chess headquarters. But when we did that, we knew that the delegates, according to our bylaws, the delegates have the authority to authorize the sale of the building, or to approve the sale of the building, of the premises. So it's the land and the building, and we can't separate the land and the building from one another as part of this process. We can't sell one or the other because of the way that the original, the original property agreement and all that was put together with the city. So we have to sell both together. They're not separable. And so, but in order to get the approval of the delegates, we have to have a special delegates meeting, or we wait till the delegates meeting in August, and there's no need to do that when we're kind of ready to proceed. So said, let's do a special delegates meeting and address this single topic, which is approval from the delegates to sell the headquarters, the premises. So we notified everyone well in advance, in accordance with the bylaws, which specify at least 30 days. And we also consulted with the bylaws committee, who asked some pretty good questions. And in particular, those questions caused us to seek additional legal counsel, in that additional legal counsel clarified some matters. So the way procedurally we'll actually do this is, you've got the original motion that we put forth. We're going to show you a subsidiary or a substitute motion tonight. And if you've attended the other town hall, you've already seen it. But we're going to show you that subsidiary or replacement substitute motion that we will vote on to become the main motion before we start debating that as a motion. So that's how we're going to tackle that process. But the bylaws committee asked the right questions, and did what we asked them to do, to just make sure that the motion that we originally put forth was the right wording, and they saw some things that thought needed further clarification, and we sought that. Go ahead, next slide, Carol. So that's the original motion that all of you have, in your delegates packet. And that is the motion that will be on the floor initially when we start the meeting. That's the motion we're going to talk about. And what will happen at the start of the meeting is the executive board is going to propose a subsidiary motion, a replacement. And we will have to vote as a body to have that new motion, the subsidiary motion, become the main motion for discussion. And once it is the main motion, we can then discuss it, amend it if necessary, and so forth. But so, us trying to amend this really won't get us anywhere. If, hey, well, let's change Tennessee to an abbreviation, or the zip code's wrong or something like that. That's we need to get the subsidiary motion up there, because that's the meat that we really need to discuss and come to agreement upon as a board of delegates. Next slide. So this is the subsidiary motion, is what it's technically called in Robert's rules. And I'll give you a chance to read that. Okay, so again, procedurally, this will get introduced as a subsidiary motion. Then we'll vote to have this motion replace the main motion. And we're not voting on any substance of this product. We're voting on the act of dispensing the original main motion and replacing it with this one. And then this will then become, we have to vote on that. So there'll be a vote going through the electronic means, which we'll play with in a few minutes. And once we vote and pass that, then we'll start opening the floor for discussion of this particular motion, which is subject to amendment, based on what the delegates, decide and what the delegates feel. But this is the principal topic. This is the topic of discussion for the special delegates meeting. Next slide.
Mike, if you're speaking, nobody can hear you. It looks like
he looks frozen.
Yeah, he does.
Looks like he just dropped off.
Yeah. Randy, do you want to pick up here?
Sure.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the warranty deed that was dated back and recorded with the Register of Deeds on March 24, 2014. And that was when it was conveyed to the trustees of the LMA Trust. Originally the construction of the building was done with a loan from LMA Trust. The loan was repaid. The LMA Trust then had possession of the property, and that's the warranty deed that we're looking at here. And there is the pertinent part that the trustees will not sell, encumber, or mortgage in any manner the property unless the board of delegates resolves to sell property. And that, of course, is what we're concerned with the subsidiary motion that that Mike explained. And I think we want to go to the next page. So this is, I don't know if Andy has joined us yet, but I certainly explained, I'm sure many of the people on here attended the last special delegates meeting that was held via Zoom because of our, the pandemic when we could not have it even open. That a registered delegate is going to by email get login information, and there you each have that specific login for this meeting. There will be a period of time, the internet service availability will be at least 30 minutes before the start of the meeting. This meeting is scheduled for, remind me, Carol, is it 8:30 p.m. Eastern time?
Yes, that's correct.
So at by 8 p.m., it will be open for you all to log in. So you don't have to wait until the last minute, and probably be better if you don't. As Mike pointed out, it is necessary that you sign into the meeting. And as we said, put your name as your delegate identified name and the state. And you do have to maintain your audio and visual access to be able to participate, to vote in the meeting. And that's because Illinois corporate law does not allow for proxy voting. And the only way that we can ensure that is the delegate who is actually voting is if they are present on the screen. So active video, not just a picture of yourself. And then of course, the delegate for the state. The quorum, of course, is required the same as for a delegates meeting. It is the same quorum. And of course, we will have to ensure that the quorum exists at the start of the meeting and, at any time during a meeting, if a member would so desire that there be a quorum call. And that would then again require an audible roll call so that we can ensure that the individual who is, who is the participant video and audibly says that they're present. This we've seen, and we've had this problem before. There is the possibility that there will be technical difficulties, and this is something that we have encountered in the past. We certainly will work to ensure that every member is able to make their internet connection. The lack of being able to connect is not does not invalidate the participation, and you can come back into a meeting as long as you're able to establish, with video and audio that you're present. There are, I'm sure many of you have been in kinds of meetings where somebody has their television on, or their dog is barking, or things that interfere with the actual proceedings of the meeting. And that is, Robert's rules allows for the chair to disconnect, but more likely mute a member's connection if it's interfering with the meeting. That is, as said, subject to an undebatable appeal to be made by any member, and would then require a vote in terms of the appeal. This is, we are using, and I know Andrew already used it. If you're wishing to be recognized, you're going to use the raise hand icon, which is under reactions, I believe. Mike just raised his hand, and then the members will be recognized. You'll be given an ability to speak. There is a 2-minute maximum, and each member, I think maybe even on the next page, I'm not sure, but each member may speak twice, but we will keep track of who's raised their hand. And if you have spoken already on a motion or an amendment, you will not be recognized for your second opportunity until all those people that have raised their hand for their first time through have been given the opportunity to speak. If you want to make an amendment, you have to provide it by email. It has to be in writing. And as you can see, Carol will be the person that will be handling those emails. And
Randy, I'd like to really raise my hand. This slide wasn't updated, and it'll actually be Dan Lucas who will be receiving those. We will make sure that everybody has that information on Wednesday.
That information will be available, so that everybody knows that, and we'll make sure it's prominently noticed. It looks like Andy has now joined us, so I'm happy to turn it over to the actual parliamentarian. I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express one time, so I'm kind of faking this. Maybe Andy doesn't want to speak.
Oh, okay. It was for a time not letting me unmute, but now we're in. My apologies to everyone for being late. Not very nice to the time for our participants, but all the same, glad to be with US Chess on this and having to follow in the footsteps of Mike Nolan and especially Ken Ballou. Ken Ballou's done all the heavy lifting with regards to our electronic version. With regards to Robert's rules, the most recent edition does cover specifically rules that can be applied for electronic meetings. Randy, you did an excellent job covering the matter of disconnection is not a reason to hold out everybody else. Sort of like Star Trek, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Nevertheless, everybody's encouraged to do much better than I did as far as getting on board in a timely manner. And then if something technical does come up, you have some time to get that repaired instead of sending off frantic notes to Carol to try to get you back on board. Carol, thank you for your assistance. Okay. The matter of making motions, it's a very big deal. Even though we have that limited agenda of one motion, our participants have to be allowed to make amendments, and we have to have a process for that. That's established. Okay. The matter of being recognized on the floor, we have to have a method for that. Again, this is a very similar method to what we've had with the previous special delegates meeting that we had some 2 years ago. We have a 2-minute timer, and we're going to be fairly regular as far as it's 2 minutes, not 2 minutes and 12 seconds for some people and a minute 50 for some others. However, it can also be noted you do not get to carry over time. So let's say that you use 90 seconds your first time and you do manage to get to speak a second time. Your second time you'll get 2 minutes, not 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Okay. We also need to have a manner of voting. And this has also been established with the electronic poll function. And I'm not the one who has programmed this or have made it work, but I have seen it in action through couple of practice runs that we have had. And you will be able to see that you have voted, and you'll, once the final tally is completed, it'll indicate how you voted and then how the body has voted, how the assembly, how our delegates have voted in favor and opposed. There's been some question whether you have to list abstain. It's not required. And again, if we have, say, 60 people and our vote ends up being 40 in favor, 10 against, we understand there were 10 people who had abstained.
We are going to list it though, Andy.
So, correct, and we'll be able to have that. And it's not a heartache if it ends up being a abstain listed on there, but even if it's missed, it'll still be able to be calculated into the final vote tally. And Alan Priest has made a point as well, indicating that you're in agreement with whatever the majority rules. As a practical matter,
Yes.
that's completely correct. Okay, so again, we have the matter where we have amendments that are able to be made. The chair and the parliamentarian can decide whether they're in order or not in order. If there's an objection, eventually we get to debate, have a discussion, and in one form or another, there will be a final motion to be voted on. And once that is completed, then there would be no more business for the special delegates meeting. And that meeting would then be able to be adjourned.
Okay, thanks, Andy.
I'm sure there are some questions. I know that I have my email somewhere in these presentations is listed.
Yeah, it's at the back
Please-
end.
Please, you can feel free to contact me via the email. And I'll be glad to, discuss. And it's not a bad thing to try to answer questions and clarify matters in advance.
Okay, Carol, go ahead and take us through some aspects of Zoom for all the members.
Thank you, Mike. I'm going to do this really quickly since we have a good number of people on Zoom tonight, and we've been using it for the better part of 2 years. The one thing I will say on this slide in the intro is please download the most recent version of Zoom if you're using the app. You go to Zoom's website and there's a free download that you can pick up if you're using a computer. If you're using a phone or other mobile device, you can get it from whatever app store supports your device. But there are features that they keep adding, and we're trying to use as many of them as we can. And so it's important that your app is among the most current. So the basics for the special delegates meeting, somebody has already covered this. Delegates are required to have their video on. It's the little camera icon that's in your lower menu bar. The mic can be turned on. You will be recognized if you're being recognized to speak to a motion. You can unmute yourself when prompted to do so by the chair. If you're having trouble during the meeting, we have a couple of folks standing by on our team who are going to be on the call with us, Jen Pearson from our governance team and Dan Lucas and myself. Any one of us will be able to help you try to troubleshoot if you're having issues. And as I think Andy just mentioned, or maybe it was Randy, try to get on a few minutes early and check out your system, because nobody wants the technical stuff to be the reason you don't participate.
And I know some people get concerned because, if you look at your screen right now, at your own screen, if you've got dual monitors, you may have, like on mine, I see 20 faces, 20 images of people talking, and I got to go to an additional screen to see another 20. When it's time for, if you want to say something as part of the discussion process, during the special delegates meeting, the act of raising your hand brings your picture to the front of the queue, so we know you're there. It's not like you're on screen number 3 and we don't see you. So it will push you right to the front of the line, in order of people who have raised their hands. So if I raise mine and Alan raises his right after, I'll be on the upper left and Alan's right next to me. It doesn't keep you're not down in the bottom and nobody knows you got your hand up, and you don't have to be waving, hey, I've got my hand up kind of thing. So Zoom will take care of that for you. Go ahead, Carol.
Yeah, and so this is a change in one of the more recent releases of Zoom. The raise hand function is now in the reactions button. So if you look for that on your menu bar, it should be a standalone thing that says reactions, and within that you can put up different emoticons, but the most important one, if you're planning to participate and speak during the meeting, is the raise hand icon. And as Mike indicated, once you raise your hand, you move to the top of the queue at the top of the list of people who are signed on to the meeting. So Jen Pearson will be monitoring who has raised their hand, and we'll be recording that in the shared document we're using for displaying motions, and we'll show that in a little bit. So we've graduated to using a computer-based timer for this meeting. So when someone is recognized to speak, they'll be given 2 minutes. We're using the Google timer, and it'll set alongside the motion that we're discussing. It's not perfect, but Zoom has not yet evolved to to allow us to do what we need to do within the application natively.
And I know Guy's wondering, Guy, it's no time delay and no time increment, so don't worry.
I think this has largely been discussed. The one thing I will emphasize is that because unlike our physical delegates meeting room where we have a mic labeled for the motion and a mic labeled against, on Zoom, there is no such thing. So we just ask that when you are recognized to speak, state your name and the state you're representing, and whether you're speaking for or against the motion. That will allow everybody to know who you are and where you're from, as well as, you know, what to listen for as you speak to the motion that's before the body. And I think everything else has been covered already on this slide.
And there you can see at the bottom, Dan Lucas is the
Right.
point of contact. And we'll have you know, Dan's name will be put in the chat several times during the meeting in case you didn't write it down or you can't find the reference to it. It'll be in the chat so that way you know how to grab Dan's email address and send him something. And you can send him either an email or put it in a Word document or a notepad document, whatever you got, and send him that. So you just send it to his email address.
All right. So earlier I referenced the display of motions. This is the document. We'll try to enlarge the text when it's on display during the meeting. Alongside it, we will be putting the timer up in the upper right so that everybody will be able to see it. We'll be pinning it there so it stays on screen, and each person who is recognized to speak will just reset it for the 2 minutes and let it run once that person's recognized. You'll also see in this little table where we'll be listing the names of people who have risen their hand or raised their hand to speak to a motion. And as pointed out earlier, you're only able to speak to a motion one time before everybody else has an opportunity to speak once. So if you've raised your hand shortly after you've spoken and want to speak again, you'll have to wait until everybody has a first shot before you'll be recognized to speak again. So that's spoken already right here on the table is what will be listed there. And then any amendments to the motion will be carried on down below. So finally, we will be conducting a number of votes during the special delegates meeting, certainly to appoint a parliamentarian. Any votes related to the motion will also be considered. And we do have a poll queued up tonight for people to practice. Voting is done in real time and the votes are tabulated in real time. We know right away how things go. So I'm going to go ahead and
So before you do that, how do I know that my vote got accepted by the system?
right. And Andy spoke to that. When you submit it, the system tells you how you voted.
Okay,
So
let's try it.
yeah. All right. I only have one poll tonight. Having trouble seeing my mouse here. All right. So you can see that the poll is launched. There's a timer on it. We'll give everybody, you know, a reasonable amount of time. Obviously, this is not a question you'll see Wednesday evening. This is just for fun tonight.
No.
Okay, we set this up while the Olympics were going on, you know. All right, 15 seconds.
How long are we going to allow for people to vote?
We'll be watching how many people have voted and be sure that we try to coax out the last few votes. Some of the discrepancy here is that staff is not going to vote. So that's partly why you're not seeing the full numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and stop things. And I want to share the results here. All right, can everybody see that 3 out of 14 people voted for the statement and 11 people out of the 14 voted against? So the motion does not pass. All
Okay.
right. And I think that's all I have about Zoom. I'm happy to spend time tomorrow with anybody who feels that they need assistance, either getting registered or set up for the meeting. Just give me enough lead time because things are real busy right now, but I'm happy to, spend that time if it allows you to participate.
Carol? There's a
Yes.
couple of questions on the chat as far as people wanting to have an individual.
Andy, you broke up.
Chat. Chat, correct? But live in the Zoom domain, is that correct?
We have the chat set to allow everybody to post to everybody and allow to, you should be allowed to chat to people
Post.
directly, direct message. I think that's the question.
Yes, direct messaging looks like that's going to cover
Right.
from what was asked.
If we set it on the chat to host, then it limits who you can chat to. So you can send a direct message, I believe, to anybody else who's on the call. And finally, Mike, if you want to take it over from here.
Okay. So just to review the schedule, we're finishing up this town hall in a little bit after we do some questions and answers, and then the special delegates meeting will be Wednesday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. If you have not yet registered for the delegates meeting, please do so because it's a separate registration from these town halls. Registration for the town hall does not register you for the special delegates meeting. So you have to make sure you register for the special delegates meeting itself. Carol, if somebody doesn't have the registration instructions, where can they find them?
Yeah, a reminder was sent to all delegates again today from US Chess Mail. So
Right.
please look for that, and the registration link is in there.
Okay. Okay, go ahead and bring up the next slide. So you can reach out if you have any questions. And I'll let this sit here for a second in case anybody wants to do a screen capture so they have this, or write it down so they have the email addresses just in case. I just let that set for a second or two. Okay, Carol, go ahead and put the substitute motion back up. I think it's slide 6 or thereabouts. Just hit the number 6 and press your enter key. Yeah, 5. Okay. So, so if who's got questions about, about what, what's in the motion, why is it in the motion, those kinds of things, because now is sort of the time to try to understand, what caused us to make the change, if that's something you're interested in having further information about. Chuck, how did the what was the LMA Trust's perspective on this revised motion?
Yes, the LMA overwhelmingly voted in favor of this revised and substitute motion. And it allows the conveyance of the proper conveyance of the building.
Yeah. And it says down there that, all the proceeds from the sale of the premises will be deposited into the LMA Trust account. The LMA Trust account is separate from other US chess accounts?
Yes, it is. The LMA has its own TD Ameritrade portfolio and operates separately from any other US chess account.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions about the subsidiary motion?
Mike, Alex Lemelski has his hand raised.
Go ahead, Alex. Oh, Alex, by the way, thank you for the work that you guys did in bylaws to raise some questions, because it did cause us to, to look a little deeper. So we appreciate, that work that you guys did.
Thank you, Mike. I'm just gonna turn on my camera. I'm actually cooking and listening. I had a couple of questions, not really about the substance of the motion. I know we did a lot of work on that in bylaws for sure.
Yeah.
The motion seems a little, well, I don't know. We reviewed it, I guess. I'm not gonna comment on it. But I had a couple of side questions. One question is, are we permitted to substitute the motion given the rules for the special delegates meeting and the notice rules?
Yes.
Okay, so that was one. And then,
Mike, can I maybe elaborate on your answer there? So Alex, we will be presenting the original motion, and then the substitute motion will be introduced. So procedurally, that's how it
Process. You may have missed that earlier on, but go back one.
no, I heard that.
Okay, then we're good then.
I did hear it. I was just wondering if, because the special delegates meeting, I remember, has some very strict rules that we don't usually have at the annual meeting. You have to give notice of the motion and things like that. I was just wondering if we're okay substituting. And then, unfortunately, the second question kind of slipped my mind now. If I remember it, I will. I'm sorry?
Randy, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, you still can amend the original motion. It has to be germane. The key issue is whether or not, it is germane to the subject matter of the meeting. And that this is clearly a substitute matter that basically perfects the original motion. And that's basically all the discussion that happened in bylaws. And it'd be different if it weren't.
Okay, Chris.
And then,
I guess
I was wondering. I'm sorry, I just remembered, are the delegates going to get a paper version or email version of this language?
Carol.
We can certainly do that, yes.
Because it's kind of hard to keep all of it in mind. It's a much
Do
bigger motion.
do a screen capture. Use the technology.
Just do print screen, yeah.
We'll make sure you get a copy of the motion
Okay.
tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Chris was the next person with his hand in the air. Go ahead and David,
Yeah.
give Chris the floor.
First off, just to say, Tennessee has been the proud home of U.S. chess for the last 18 years. And we're all for the move to St. Louis. There's no sour grapes. But we do want to know, we've been a proud home and we've been proud to have you here. I've tried to get a little information so I can make a informed choice for Wednesday, and it can be sent to us. It doesn't matter. But the money's going to the LMA Trust. Is there a way we can get what the current money that the trust is making at the moment and the current obligation each year the trust has to U.S. Chess for life members? Because the way I look at the numbers, I'm thinking the LMA Trust is probably paying out more every year than they're making in interest. And if this money is put in that LMA Trust, it's a matter of time before it's gone. Is there some way we can have some sort of information about, will this money stabilize the trust to where it's not going to be gone in 20 years? Or,
Chuck.
I mean, if we can get that, it would help. We have no information.
That's very interesting comments, Chris. The LMA Trust grows its investments by over 5% per year. And yes, it was underfunded in the past. And the funding that has come in of recent, meaning the last 2 decades, and since the move to Tennessee, has replenished the LMA Trust. And we do meet the obligations under the bylaws. The bylaws that says we have an agreement with operations to reimburse them a set amount for each active LMA member that elects a hard copy of the magazine. And we're meeting that. We've met it for 5 years. The trust is in very good financial shape, but it's really outside the scope of this this action.
Us knowing where the money's going to and making sure it's going to be safe before we sell one of our major assets is outside the scope of us voting to
Well,
sell.
I would say that the delegates elected the LMA trust people. So now
Yeah.
you're saying we don't trust the trust to do its job. That's what you
No.
just said.
What I'm saying is I have to make a decision as a delegate and I have no information. It's not about not trusting the LMA. It's not about not trusting the board. I've worked beside this board. They're phenomenal
Yeah.
people. It's about I'm being asked to make a decision to sell a major asset. I have a fiduciary duty. I have nothing. No studies, no, the whole idea of leasing versus selling. I have nothing, no study to show that we shouldn't lease. The whole idea of buying a building with the proceeds from this building, I have nothing to say that that's good or bad. I have absolutely no information to make an informed decision. A little resentful of being put in that position. We're told the move is a done deal, the place is a done deal, that we're leasing is a done deal, that the building is going to be empty, that's a done deal. We're selling and not leasing the building, that's a done deal. The only thing we can vote on is whether or not to sell, evidently, an empty building. And that's only because it was in the deed. I'm a little resentful of being put in that position to have to vote on something that important with no information. That's my problem. I have nothing.
To the contrary, your delegates call does have the information. It has, every year we publish the LMA and the assets of the LMA.
Can you resend that out to us? I mean, it would just help to have something to make this vote on other than just trust us. And I trust all of you, but I have to justify my decision to me and the people that I represent in Tennessee. And without any information, it's hard for me to go back to the people I represent and say I made an informed decision. That's just all I'm saying. It would be nice to have something.
I will tell you the LMA is in very good financial shape. It's the best it's been in 5 years. And I'm more than willing to share any information on the LMA.
The information that would help us would be, in the last couple of years, how much has the LMA made on its assets? And in the last couple of years, what has been the LMA's obligation to US Chess?
What is that to do with the sale of the building?
Well, because if we sell the building instead of lease, or we don't invest, I mean, it's not about the investment. It's about, should we sell the building? Should we not lease it? Should we not, is there some other way we can do this?
So Carol,
if I
Carol,
know
let me
sell the building.
Let me ask a question of Carol. Carol, what is the cost that we spend each year maintaining the building, maintaining the property, and so forth? Because recognizing, we're not having to pay any rent in the building's paid off, which is part of what Chris's point is. What are the costs that we're paying per month, and how do we think that would compare with the idea of cost of leasing a property in St. Louis?
So for the most recent fiscal year, which is the numbers that were easiest for us to pull, there are certain parts of those numbers that are underreported because we weren't using the building like we had prior to COVID. So the building costs, there are taxes, there are maintenance costs, which were actually only $400 last year because we were not using the building. There are cleaning costs. We went from 5 days to 1 day a week cleaning due to COVID. Those costs were about $31,000 during COVID. I did the calculation and adjusted for things that we will be paying for, whether we're in a leased space or in an office space, and it's about $36,000 to $38,000 a year to just operate the building, maintain it, have a security system, lawn mowing, snow removal, all those things, utilities. The spaces that we're looking at in the St. Louis area, roughly half the size of the building in Crossville. And many of those spaces come with utilities included in the rent. And it's going to be anywhere between $3,000 and $4,000 a month on the current market in St. Louis. So that's 36 $48,000 to $48,000 a year with utilities. So
Because we're leasing and we're paying what we would normally pay if we own the building, plus a profit from the person we're leasing it from. Do we have any information on how much it would cost if we purchased a smaller building in St. Louis, how much that cost would be? Or if we leased the building in Crossville, how much we could lease it for, and if that would be more advantageous than selling it. If we leased the building in Crossville and used that for the lease in St. Louis, or sold the building in Crossville and purchased a smaller building in St. Louis, would we have a substantial savings over time?
Right. So
But I have nothing to.
from my perspective, Chris, a building that you own has the potential to become a burden. Right now, we have 3 people working in a building that was designed to house about 20 people working in the office. And we have to heat the whole building. We have to clean the whole building. We have to maintain the whole building, even though we're only using a fraction of the space. Leasing space will allow us to scale as our office staff changes, as people work in St. Louis, as attrition happens. We may have more people in the office in the next 5 years, and then 5 years out, we may only have 3 people in the office. And leasing space gives US Chess a lot more flexibility to scale its needs. Owning a building, you're saddled with owning a building. And I know that there's some consensus among the board that we're not in the business of owning property, right? That's not a good use of our time, our interest, and simply leasing the space to somebody in the Crossville area really goes beyond what our mission as a C3 organization is, and would actually open us up to having to pay taxes on any profit we make from that building. So from that perspective, it brings us into an area that we've avoided having to do, which is paying unrelated business income tax payments.
I was just asking if we've done any kind of thing that concrete that we can see that this has been done, or see the numbers ourselves before we make this decision.
Okay.
So I'll ask that again if we can get by Wednesday, even an appraisal of the building. We don't even have an appraisal. I know one's coming, but we don't even have that, but we're asked to sell it. So I just, as a delegate who has a fiduciary responsibility to this organization, I have no information, none, except trust us. And I do trust the board. I think you guys are wonderful, but I have to explain my decision to the people that I represent.
So Carol, has the appraisal come in yet?
It has. It came in late last week.
Okay, and what's the property appraised at?
The appraisers, the appraiser's report indicated that we could expect somewhere just under $1 million if we sold the building.
Okay. And Chuck, what's considered the, I don't know what the right language is, but how does that, it's because I'm not saying the right words, but I'm trying to get the point across as, what was the amount of money the LMA loaned to US Chess to build the building that we have?
It was approximately 580,000.
Okay. Okay.
And when the money comes into the trust, in general, or for the last 5 years, we've made more than 5% per every 100,000. So this would be an additional dividend stream of approximately $40,000 to $45,000.
Okay. And Mike, can I make a follow-up?
Yeah, go ahead, Randy. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, the point that Chuck makes is good, because there's an opportunity cost to having an illiquid asset. And even if you say it has now appreciated from I thought it was 575,000 or 580, whatever. If you were even to sell it and then figure in closing costs and what you're going to have to pay the broker, and say you cleared $900,000, and we don't know if this building could even sell for $1 million, but even if you did, you've held it for 18 years. That's a compound annual growth rate of 2.52%. Chuck and the investors are making over 5% with those, putting those assets to work for US Chess. As Carol said, we're not property management business. And we'll be tying up our resources to manage a property, to turn off, to shed income that's less than what our investment people, who are all volunteers, by the way, are able to return with that same dollars, proceeds put to work for us. So for my perspective, it is a no-brainer. And Chris, I've answered at least a dozen of your questions on the USCF member forum on Facebook. So I get a little bit offended when I hear that nobody's giving you any answers.
Let me, Alan, you had your hand in the air. Alan Cantor had his hand in the air next. Go ahead and give the floor to Alan Cantor, David.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what Chris said about the Tennessee Chess Association. It's not against the move to St. Louis, but we want to know, what is the rush to sell the building? We own the building. U.S. Chess owns the building. If it is because of the best market value, where is the reports for that? We have no information on that. Can we see those reports if there is, or is it just on hearsay? And why can't we wait till the regular delegates meeting to vote on the building? I'll mute myself.
Alan, once US Chess moves its headquarters, then the building is no longer part of the mission. And we're not in the real estate business. And if we lease it, we come subject to taxes. If we invest our money from the sale, since it's no longer part of the mission, then that is still, under our tax status, a non-taxable event. The numbers I gave you earlier are cash distributions from our investments. That's not even the growth. It's just what we receive every year in cash. So it's a building, and you become a landlord. And we're not in that business. And the IRS will not look at it as we're in that business.
Alan Priest. We don't hear you, Alan. There we go.
That better?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
We there?
Yes, we hear you, Alan.
Okay. The unrelated business income tax is a tax that nonprofits have to pay when they have stuff that is investments or activities that are not related to their nonprofit purpose. By definition, rental of a building is not part of our nonprofit purpose. If we were a business incubator, maybe, but we're not. So very clearly doing this, holding on to it and renting it out would cause us to have to file a 990T and would cause us to pay income tax on any money that was generated. It also arguably would be, if after we leased it for a while, if we sold it, we would potentially have to pay income taxes on part or all of any gain from the sale at that point. If we dispose of it today as surplus because it's not where we're located anymore, it clearly would not be subject to UBIT. The other thing is the bylaws are pretty clear. The bylaws have made the executive board the board of directors of the organization. The board of directors of the organization have specific duties. When the EB was made the board of directors after a 2 or 3 year process that I was a part of, some folks wanted to carve out certain board of director duties for the delegates. One of those that was carved out specifically was to approve the sale of any or encumbrance of any real estate. There is not a board of directors carve out to the delegates for buying property or for leasing property, or for determining where the headquarters will be. So at the end of the day, the delegates have the board of directors' duty to determine, to approve any sale or to approve any encumbrance, and that's it. You know, the debate over where you want the headquarters to be and whether you want to buy a building wherever you put the headquarters is not under the purview of the delegates. It just isn't, because that is a board of directors decision, and the board of directors of the organization clearly are the executive board. But owning it and leasing it is just simply not an option from a tax standpoint. You make far more money, you know, investing in other stuff. The LMA trust or even the endowment fund, we can't even own REITs in those things because a REIT will generate UBIT. So,
Wilson from Oregon.
Thank you. And my main question, Carol has already answered. So thanks for the appraisal. That was very useful information. So my next questions are less important, but or maybe unanswerable. How long do we expect this property to be on the market? I mean, how's the market in Tennessee? Are we planning to just set a price and hold for it, or will we, you know, be drastically reducing the price? And do we have any expected buyers already?
Carol, go ahead.
Yeah, so when we announced that US Chess was relocating back in January, you might imagine that it triggered some phone calls and the like. And just last week, a local radio station and subsequently a web article reinforced that US Chess was going to be relocating. And my understanding is that we have no fewer than 4 prospective buyers who have already expressed interest in the property before it's even been listed. And so we do anticipate that it could move quickly. And I believe there was even a 5th prospective buyer who personally reached out to me and indicated an interest in buying the building as well. And so now that we have a proper appraisal, you know, again, that's not a guarantee of a sales price, but it's, you know, a licensed appraiser did the work for us, and we at least know kind of the ballpark, give or take, of what we might expect should the sale go through.
Okay, Randy.
Yeah, just to follow up on a couple of the questions that have been asked, and also kind of on what Carol just mentioned. You know, we want to do this now so that we can get it on the market. You know, interest rates are rising, and there certainly is the possibility that the market will not be as robust some months from now. But, you know, we're working to deliberately plan out the move to St. Louis. And this is a big part of that. You know, we do not want to be managing a property in Tennessee while our small staff is located in St. Louis. It's just not our mission. And we've got enough. We have a small staff as it is, and they have enough to do without us also, you know, having to deal with those issues at the same time. I'm a financial advisor to governments and nonprofits, and that's the business that I'm in, is management and budget consulting. I have lots of nonprofits that are my clients. Lots of them rent, and it's usually because they're not in the business of managing property. A USCF, US Chess is not in the business of managing property. It's much easier for us to find a location that fits our needs and know that we have the flexibility to change that location if necessary, because of, you know, of change in the way we do our operations. If we're now going to start designing and planning to build a building and deal with all of the hassles associated with that, that just detracts from the time that's available for us to do our mission. I view a lot of the kind of, well, why don't you think about this or that, as just detracting from our mission and putting our focus and our time and efforts there. If we're able to get a good, you know, price is what we're talking about, I'm really confident that Chuck and the investment committee for the trustees, who are all delegate appointed, it's not like this is money that the executive board gets to fool around with, that they will prudently invest and they will get us a better return on investment than we will get from managing that building or holding on to it and thinking that it's going to appreciate further for a sale.
Matt Crosette was next. Go ahead, Matt.
So this has already been said by so many of you, and so many of you said it so well, but I thought I would add my perspective as a business owner, that there's so many ways out there, so many ways to make money, unlimited ways to make money, unlimited money out there to make. But it's not always the right thing to do. You have to keep focused with what it is that you do. And I would make the argument that even if all the research was done and it came back saying, you know what, you're going to take a $500,000 bath on this by selling this building instead of leasing it out, that it's still the smarter thing to do for US Chess to sell the building, because as has been mentioned by Carol and Randy and Alan and everybody else, US Chess is not in the real estate business. It opens such a can of worms that you have no idea. Once you start getting into another area, all the different things that you now have to do. Totally, regardless of whether or not it makes you more money, it's completely distracting from what the US Chess is supposed to be doing. And as Alan pointed out, it's not really our responsibility to decide that. But I just wanted to throw in my perspective as a business owner, that it would just be silly to try to hang on to this building and do something with it.
Anyone else have any questions? Any other questions? Okay, well, I want to again thank everyone for attending the sessions again tonight. Carol, go ahead and put the last slide up that had the points of contact information on it again. Did we lose Carol?
Yeah, we did. I logged back on from my iPad, so I've lost control of the slides.
Okay, I got it from here, I think.
Mike, it looks like we have one additional question.
Okay. Oh, it's Alan Priest. Go ahead, Alan.
Hey, Mike, in the chat, I was just looking at it. Alan, Cantor, and Chris have come back on this same question. Why can't we wait until the regular delegates meeting? I think the answer to that, from serving on the LMA Trust and voting on this, talking about this for a while and talking about it as a member of the bylaws committee also. The reason we don't want to wait is we want to get it on the market and move while interest rates are where they are. With interest rates moving up, with concerns about inflation increasing and talk about stagflation, one of the ideas is get it and get gone and not be messing with it later. The other thing is the organization's going to move. An empty building sitting there is just ripe for problems. You've got to maintain it, you've got to secure it, and anything that is vacant declines quickly. That's the second point. And third, I think Randy made this point. It just detracts from the ongoing mission of the organization. We've made the decision to move. It's time to get the building sold and move. And the quickest way to do that is get it on the market as soon as possible. The other thing is, by doing it in a special delegates meeting, you can focus the time and discussion on that one issue. And that's exactly what's being done.
Okay, so thanks, Alan. So to recap, for the special delegates meeting, when you sign in, please go ahead and rename yourself so that you have your name and what state you represent as part of your name. And you also must have your video on, during the meeting so that you get counted. Turning off your video and stepping away and going watching the war on TV or whatever it is that you're going to go do does not, and then hurry up and coming back and voting and going back, that just doesn't work. You have to be physically present and, active on the screen so that we know you're a live person on the other end. But I want to thank Carol and her staff for setting up this town hall this evening. All the hard work that's gone into that. This is the second town hall we had. We learned a lot from the first one, and appreciate those people who participated in that first one to work in. We appreciate the thought site to give us additional things to work as we prepare for the actual delegates, special delegates meeting on Wednesday night. So I hope you have a great evening, and look forward to seeing all of you in a little bit less than 48 hours at 8:30 Eastern time on Wednesday evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.